that can be done for the University of Arizona Wildcats basketball program. We're going to recap Ryan Nembhard, what that means, and what it means for Arizona and what they need to do going forward. Let's get started here on Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
For keeping it Locked On Wildcats, I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, we've got a lot to get to this show, and I mean a lot to get to this show. First, we're going to talk about the bad, and then we're going to get to the good. All right, everybody knows Ryan Nembhard has committed to the university or to Gonzaga, and not going to blow any smoke here. That's a tough loss for the University of Arizona because when you have the recruiting strategy that Tommy Lloyd does, where you essentially offer a few kids and you've got to be able to hit those guys. You've got to be able to hit those guys. And if you don't hit on them, then you're kind of left looking everywhere for players right there. Now, when it comes to University of Arizona, couple things. I believe that you got to change your recruiting approach there a little bit, as we talked about before. The main reason why is I don't believe that you should only recruit four guys in a recruiting cycle. That doesn't make any sense to me. Whatsoever. Look at the top 70 kids in a class and choose 10 of them, because you can't tell me that everybody except 65 of them aren't, or 66 of them aren't good fits. From a style, from a playing perspective, all that, you name it. Arizona, in my opinion, has to be able to get those type of dudes. And I don't think it's too much to ask. Again, target guys that are who you feel comfortable with, obviously, but find 8 to 10 of those guys and land 2 or 3 of them. To me, it's kind of that simple. Again, I don't mean to oversimplify things, but I think you got to look at it from that perspective and say that you're the University of Arizona. You should be able to do things. You should be able to get players like that in that realm. That's what I'm saying. Now, when it comes to some of the other players when it comes to grad transfers and to the guys in the transfer portal, I'm going to say it again. I believe that Arizona should be able to recruit the transfer portal at a high level. And again, it's nothing. That's no slight to Courtney Ramey or Sed Henderson, because they both did very, very good work here. Those are rotation pieces, though. Those aren't difference makers per se. You got to get guys in there that are difference makers. And we've talked about it before, but you look at Texas. You brought in a Marcus Carr from University of Minnesota. You could tell pretty quickly that he was going to be a difference maker. And the fact that he averaged 17 points per game, granted, it was in the Big Ten. We won't hold that against him here because this actually helps my argument. But that is kind of what you're looking at right there. Now, when it comes to Arizona, what they need, you can find guys in the portal, and I believe that you can find guys in the portal fairly early, and I don't think that you have to be messing around maybe in the manner in which some people think, because you got a pretty good sample size by now. You know what guys in the portal can bring to the equation. And again, that's something that's good. When you know what somebody can bring to the equation, you want to try to emphasize that. You want to try to take advantage of that in any way that you can, because again, when you're at the University of Arizona, you should be able to get those players. If Texas can get them, if Kansas State can get them, if schools like that can get them, the University of Arizona should be able to get them. Now, so again, I would love to see Tommy Lloyd push up his recruiting strategy to a certain degree. I think that would make a world of difference there, because again, I believe that he has got a fairly good, I think he's got a fun product. I mean, got a fun product to be able to sell. And I think the one thing that everybody's got to look at is that, okay, Arizona is right here, and you're a top 10, 15 basketball program in the country. You can run up and down. You got a coach that lets you play. you should be able to get players like that. It shouldn't be difficult. So don't make things more difficult than they are, I guess would be my advice right there, because I don't believe that you need to do something like that. As a matter of fact, I think that you're creating a problem where there isn't a problem. Find 10 kids each year and prioritize and then go after them. Again, I know that it sounds great to the kids when you're only one of 2 players that we're offering. That is awesome. But when you don't get one of those guys, then you're kind of stuck. So that's what I would do when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to University of Arizona and what I would be looking for then if I'm Lloyd, I think that you can find I would recruit more like Luke did, to be honest with you. With obviously you're going to have a heavy international flair because that's what Tommy Lloyd specializes in. And I totally get that one. You want to have that. I get that. Totally get it. No problems whatsoever. But I think it does become it becomes more difficult. I'll put it to you like that. It becomes more difficult when you set parameters. And as Jason Shear said a while back, I would recruit kids. And then I would just tell them, I would be like, listen, we love you guys at that. We love you guys at this position. There's 3 players right here. The first one to commit gets the scholarship. Lloyd Olson did that all the time. I think it works perfectly because you're telling them, we want you to be an Arizona Wildcat. You got 3 guys right here. First one to commit gets that spot. And I think the kids should be able to understand that philosophy as well. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a front runner philosophy, status, you name it, whatever you want to name it. It's just something that I think makes a lot of sense if you're the University of Arizona and if you're Tommy Lloyd. So again, expand the recruiting pool a little bit. Try to get a combination in your class of guys who are, top 50 to 60 players, top 75, I don't care. You can get your international or 2, get a portal player or 2, and then call it a day. But again, got to offer more than just 2 or 3 players, in my opinion. And Tommy Lloyd, we need to be honest here. Tommy Lloyd's a sharp guy. I don't think that this is lost on him. I don't think that I'm breaking any news right here that he probably doesn't already know. Again, the great ones learn. The great ones learn from their mistakes. And I think the thing about Tommy Lloyd is that we can sit here and say that he knows as a coach, he knows what he's doing. Now you got to adjust the recruiting strategy a little bit. And, honestly, a lot of coaches struggle in the infancy of recruiting or game strategy, and they evolve at times. I mean, look at Lloyd Olson. Lloyd Olson's one of the 15 best coaches to ever walk a college basketball sideline. And Lloyd Olson went and Lloyd Olson said, this strategy right now that I'm using where I'm trying to, play bigger guys and slow it down a little bit, get the ball into the post each time, that isn't really working. And that's why we're kind of getting bounced against more athletic teams. So then what does he do? He goes out and he changes his philosophy. He doesn't overhaul it, but, he makes some adjustments. And the first adjustment he makes is we are going to be a more guard-oriented attack. And, there were some hiccups in the road, but you know what that also meant? From 94 to 01, you went to 3 Final Fours, played in a national title game, and you won a national championship. So, again, it worked. And that was Lloyd Olson, who had already been to 2 Final Fours. Look at Mike Krzyzewski. Mike Krzyzewski is one of the biggest proponents you will ever find of I'm going to play man-to-man defense. That's what we do. That's what we're always going to do. And cool, he did it. But you know what? In 2015, he realized that he didn't have the roster for that. So what did he do? He switched things up, and he went with an almost all-zone defense. And what did they do? They won the national championship. So, again, it can be done there. It should be able to be done. So that's the next step, I think, from Lloyd. You know that he's a really good X's and O's coach. You know he's a good game day coach. He lets his players go. The next step right there is being able to, I think, get the recruiting situation down, and I think he will. Now, let's talk about some of the recruiting situations that we're talking about right now. And the first one that we need to talk about is this coming Wednesday. Carter Bryant will be announcing his decision. Carter Bryant top 5 kid out of Louisville, out of Louisville, top 5 kid who is deciding between Arizona and Louisville, actually out of Fountain Valley, California. Take for what it's worth, but it would be a major surprise if Arizona did not get Carter Bryant. They should be able to get Carter Bryant because, again, Tommy Lloyd has been on him from the word go. And not only has he been on him from the word go, he has been recruiting him in such a manner that you would certainly expect to be able to get him. Now, I think they're going to be able to get him. And if you get him, my question is this: how does that change things a little bit for Arizona? Because Carter Bryant's a top 5 player in the country who has been a priority recruit for the University of Arizona for quite some time. But I do believe that they will be able to get him. You pair him with Jamari Phillips, who they're on the same AAU team. They're going to be up in Phoenix. That's a nice little start to the 2024 class. Now, they're both a little bit kind of a different player, which is cool. Carter Bryant is more of a guy who is a one and done. Again, Jason Tatum is that comparison right there. Jason Tatum is the guy who, from a skill, build, length, athleticism perspective, that's kind of what Carter Bryant is right there. And I think that's where people should look at for a realistic expectation of what he can do. Again, he's not a great athlete. He's a good athlete. He's certainly, you don't look at him and say he's not an athlete, but he gets his stuff more off skill, off being able to, wiggle around in the paint, do things like that. And that's where I think his impact will really be shown for the University of Arizona and this program. Now, with Jamari Phillips, Jamari Phillips is a guy not quite as highly rated, still a top 40 kid, also out of California, plays on the same AAU team. Jamari Phillips is good. I think Jamari Phillips is probably a little bit underrated in the grand scheme of things, but I'm okay with that, to be honest with you. Doesn't really bother me. Doesn't really bother me in the least. But again, that's the kind of guy that I'm talking about, though. Top 40 kid right there, multi-year player, and I think Tommy Lloyd can absolutely excel with guys like that. But between Carter Bryant, Jamari Phillips, that's the template right there. You get the elite guy, then you get the guy in there that's also a top, 40 player. And Arizona's got another guy coming in like that, KJ Lewis, kid out of Texas. Love KJ Lewis. That's the template for me, is you want to find guys who are able to, step in there and be able to make that play. And guys that you can develop, and not only develop, but develop in a certain way, in that you come in here initially, maybe, it takes a year or two, whatever the case may be, and then you get going and then you're ready to rock and roll. That's what I think you're hoping for if you are the University of Arizona. And I think that that's what's going to happen. Again, Tommy Lloyd ain't perfect. He's admitted that. He's admitted along the way that, there's going to be some times where it's going to maybe take a little bit of time here to be able to figure everything out. And not only is it going to take a little bit of time to figure everything out, but, at the end of the day, Arizona should be good on this one. I got full faith in the coaching staff right here. KJ Lewis is another dude, top 50 guy, whatever you want to call him. Really good athlete, a little bit raw physically, a little bit raw from just a skill perspective, but somebody that you can really build with. And you look at him as a 2 or 3 year player, he meshes right in there with Jamari Phillips. You still hopefully have Kylan Boswell in the fold as well. That's where you start going. So again, it's not the end of the world, but I do believe that this is probably going to be a real learning experience for Tommy Lloyd. And again, the great ones learn from their mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. The great ones learn from them right there. And I think Tommy Lloyd is one of the great ones. Okay, now, speaking of great stuff, let's talk about FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. That's where it's at. You want to be able to bet on games live. You want to be able to bet on games in the future. Go to FanDuel Sportsbook /Locked On. Check it out. Great stuff going on there. And I think the thing that's even more impressive about all of the FanDuel situations there is that you've got with Arizona, bet on the over for Arizona football. That's what I'm going to tell you. Whenever that line comes out, you take the over and you thank me later for it. And again, do it on FanDuel, FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. Again, it's good money right there, and it makes things more enjoyable to watch, as we know. All right, I'm going to come back in a second here, and we'll talk about some of the players maybe hoping to make that jump. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk about some of the players looking to make that jump right there for the University of Arizona. Now, that first guy that I think we're looking at and saying that, what can he do? Henry Vasar, another guy that I think would probably factor in as a top 40 to 50 recruit, something like that. And, again, that's the type of dude that you're looking for right there. He struggled a little bit as a freshman. I think we all saw that. But but that doesn't mean that was the end of the world right there. What he has though is all the kind of stuff that I think you like and you're intrigued by as a coach. Mainly because he's a guy who can run up and down the court. He's pretty fluid. I know people haven't seen this, but he can actually shoot the ball fairly well. I know that sounds funny to say. And he can have a shot blocking presence to him as well. There's a lot to like about what he can do. So that's a guy that that's a player certainly that I would say keep a very, very close eye on. I would like to see him more. I thought 9-5. Ryan Hansen said more like 11-5, something like that. And if that happens, then boom, that's another type of dude right there that I think you can work with. I'd love to see Dylan Anderson make that next jump as well. We'll see. I know that there's going to be a couple international players that Arizona will bring in, but again, 23-24 basketball season, I have no clue what to expect. Honestly, I got no clue. But after that, that's where I really want to see the Tommy Lloyd recruiting footprint start to take hold. Because at Arizona, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. At Arizona, you should be able to win. You should be able to get good players. It shouldn't be that difficult. You should be able to get good players. And because, again, you got a lot to sell. Now, again, I don't need you going toe-to-toe with Kentucky and Kansas and Duke on every single player, but you should be able to get your fair share of guys like that. I mean, Lute was able to do it. Now, again, Lute generally made his living off top 40 to 50 type kids, but you had the Mike Bibbies in there. You had the Jason Gardners. You had the Khalid Reeves. You had the players that, could have gone pretty much anywhere they wanted and were national recruits. So he did it as well. There's no reason that Tommy Lloyd can't do it as well. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with you. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. Excuse me. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, so that's kind of where we're at right now. I don't dig the recruiting strategy that Lloyd has deployed so far, and I think that you're probably going to see that be altered a little bit. But again, the guy's also 61-11 in his first 2 years. He obviously can coach basketball. He's good at what he does. But, like I said, I think some of the recruiting strategy needs to be overhauled, and that's I think you're going to see that. This is going to be a big, big offseason for him, as I think we all know. But the portal isn't closed yet, still open for a couple weeks. Got to try to find some more dudes in there. But again, you got to be able to hit that 2024 class, and you got to bring in a loaded 2024 class. So again, we'll find out where Arizona is. But again, it's not the end of the world. It's definitely a setback. We're not going to sit here and say that it's not. But if it means that it also kind of brings a little bit of clarity to Arizona's recruiting process, then it's probably all for the good right there. Again, the great ones learn. And Tommy Lloyd, I have every reason to believe, is a very smart basketball man. You can just tell by his accomplishments right there. So that's where we're at. All right. We're going to have a lot of recruiting news the rest of this week because, again, we got the EYBL coming up on Friday. But as always, thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking some more Arizona basketball recruiting. You name it, we got it. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your Monday, and back the A. Go Wildcats.